Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major!
Welcome to this week's edition of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they released. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And today we are talking about Dogma from 1999. This is our second film in our Lionsgate miniseries. Dogma in 1999 premiered at Cannes, May 1999, at TIFF, September 1999, and released in the U.S. November 12th, 1999. It opened to 1,269 theaters at the third place in the box office and expanded up to 1,330 theaters. Was nominated for Independent Spirit Award for Best Screenplay. The budget was $10 million, opening weekend $8.6 million, domestic gross of $30.6 million, overall gross of $4.39 million. Top 5 films this weekend. This is the exact same weekend as Felicia's Journey, so we got Pokemon, Bone Collector, The Messenger, and Anywhere But Here. Number 1 song in the U.S. this week, once again, Smooth by Santana. Number 1 song in Canada this week, once again, Mama Number 5 by Lou Bega. Okay. Dogma revolves around two fallen angels who plan to employ a alleged loophole in Catholic dogma to return to heaven after being cast out by God, but as existence is founded on the principle that God is infallible, their success will prove God wrong, thus undoing all creation. The last scion and 2 prophets are sent by the seraph Metatron to stop them. Directed and written by Kevin Smith. Prior to this, Clerks in 1994, Mallrats in 1995, Chasing Amy in 1997. After this, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in 2001, Clerks 2 in 2006, and Tusk in 2014.
Yeah.
I was just like, what would be a later one? I was like, yeah, I'll go with Tusk, I guess. Movie I saw in theaters, unfortunately.
Same.
Not as bad as seeing Jay and Silent Bob reboot in theaters, but it was up there. Starring Linda
Fiorentino?
Linda Fiorentino.
Fiorentino, yes. Linda Fiorentino as Bethany. Prior to this, After Hours, and an episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents in 1985,
Ooh.
The Last Seduction in 1994, Jade in 1995, Men in Black in 1997. After this, What Planet Are You From and Where the Money Is in 2000. She then did a direct-to-video movie in 2002 and another one in 2009 and hasn't acted since. A funny thing about After Hours, we were just talking about out-of-print DVDs. I saw that at a Dollar General today for $3, and I was like, oh, I need to buy that, because as soon as I buy that, they're going to announce a Blu-ray. Ben Affleck as Bartleby. Matt Damon as Loki, once again. Also starring Chris Rock, Jason Lee, Jason Mewes, Alan Rickman, and Salma Hayek. Trivia. There's a lot of trivia. William Donahue of the Catholic League lambasted the film and publicly protested against it for months without actually seeing it. When his office called View Askew and requested a special screening so that he could, quote, speak about it intelligently, Kevin Smith responded, so what has he been doing the past 6 months? Pretty funny. When Kevin Smith and Scott Mosher hired Alan Rickman, when they heard Alan Rickman was a Chasing Amy fan, they asked him to play Metatron. He read the script and came back with 2 questions. Would they stay faithful to the script, and were the wings real or CGI? Note, the wings are real and were very heavy, and Rickman hurt his back eventually through filming with them on.
Oh.
Apparently they were like over 100 pounds.
Jeez.
The role of Loki was written for Jason Lee, but scheduling conflicts forced him to take on the smaller role of Azrael, and Matt Damon took over as Loki.
Jason Lee would have been good. I think he would have been really good as that role. I'm imagining just the scenes where he's yelling. Where, like...
Yeah.
But, I don't need... Without laying out my hand as to how I feel about this movie, I feel like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon do.
Oh, no. I'm happy with it, but I'm
course.
thinking, like, Lee, it's like, oh, that's a good... I can see that, where, like, I'm especially...
Right, and it would be a Chasing Amy reunion, and they have great
True,
chemistry.
and I feel like Lee, when he gets into the sort of, like, the high-pitched register, where he's, like, yelling, he's like, what? We're gonna die? Go to hell? Fuck that! Like, I feel like he could really, like, handle that. It'd be like him and, like, all his scenes in, like, Chasing Amy was like, you fucking Tracer! Like that. Like, I feel like he would have... If he was in that register the whole movie, it's like, I can imagine him playing that role.
I'll trace a line around your dead fucking body. Jason Amy, pretty funny. According to Kevin Smith, Lynn Ferrantino was very difficult to work with. Some days she wouldn't even speak to him. He later said that he wished he offered the role to Janeane Garofalo instead. Once filming wrapped, Smith and Ferrantino didn't speak to each other anymore. After Smith suffered a heart attack in 2018, he was contacted by many people he hadn't spoken to in a long time, including Ferrantino. During their conversation, he apologized to her over his earlier comments about her. Smith said, "I was thankful to hear from her, and it also gave me a chance to say I'm so sorry I ever said that thing years ago. It gives you a chance to make amends." So that was my favorite one.
That's actually really
Yeah.
nice, especially because I don't know exactly what the story is with Fiorentino not acting, but like the idea of calling a female actor difficult, like is like it does, especially like hearing some of the stories about like Hollywood and blacklisting and all that stuff. It's like it does have like a much more loaded weight to it versus like I don't know, an example of like a difficult actor, like I don't know. Jared Leto. I don't know if that's a difficult actor to work with, but like
sounds like it.
Yeah, but like I feel like
I would assume working with Jared Leto is difficult in any capacity.
This is true.
Yeah.
Being his bandmates, his screen partners, yeah.
Talking to him face to face in any form.
Trying to bring up that he was in chapter 27. Anyways, Kevin Smith pursued. My man gained like 100 pounds to star in a movie nobody watched.
Have either of you seen that movie?
No.
I did.
Absolutely not. No.
I did. Oh, I watched
what?
that piece of shit.
Why?
That's a good.
I don't know. I was a teenager and I was stupid.
Oh yeah. I mean, when those pictures came out, I was like, "Oh man, this is fucking gonna be awesome." The guy from Requiem for a Dream and Lord of Wars doing this.
Look, I was in high school from 2005 to 2009. I was assigned to read Catcher in the Rye. Of course, I liked it because I was a sad teenage white boy. And then I heard that in 2007 they made a movie, and I was just like, "Oh, Jared Leto." Before we knew he was horrible, and Lindsay Lohan are in this. I have to watch this. And then like me and my friend watched it. We were just like, "Oh God, oh dear, no!" Like,
funny, we never got assigned Catcher in the Rye.
Oh,
Yeah, I definitely got assigned like Great Gatsby, blah blah blah, stuff like that.
I wonder if being in Catholic school or did that for me, or Christian school. I wonder if that was maybe the thing.
Yeah, they just assigned you the Bible over and over.
Oh dear.
Only one book you need, boy. Yeah. Kevin Smith pursued Robert Rodriguez to direct the film. Rodriguez enjoyed the script, but to see it as how personal the story was, insisted that Smith himself direct it. Smith wrote the screenplay before he wrote Clerks in 1994, but shelved it because he wanted to do it with proper visual effects and a budget. According to him, his first choice for the role of Bethany was Gillian Anderson.
Oh,
wow!
I can imagine that being good. Yeah.
I mean, she's great. I love her.
I know, but
I'm glad that she wasn't in it.
You liked X-Files, yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that she wasn't in it because never mind. We'll get to it.
It would have made it somehow better. I don't think that's possible. Emma Thompson was going to appear in the film as God, but withdrew before filming began to have a baby. The role was written for Holly Hunter, who didn't end up being cast, but the remark about the piano stayed in the script. It went to Alanis Morissette, who was originally meant to play Bethany, but was unable because of touring. Her playing Bethany would have been...
I don't know if she's a good actress. I haven't seen her in anything.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, she's good playing God, but it's just facial expression.
Well, I did notice that, like, according to Wikipedia, she got, like, one of the worst stinker awards for that, like, for that role. What was it?
Oh, come on.
It
She's
was the
so
Stinkers
good in it.
Bad Movie Award of musicians who shouldn't be acting, and she got nominated. I'm like, she has no lines, which I'm not saying if you don't have lines you can't act, but I'm just saying, like, it's such stunt casting, and she does exactly what she's supposed to do. Like, how can you just pick on her for that shit? Like,
also, there's lower grade Razzies. They call them the Stinkers.
The Stinkers Bad Movie Award, which I don't know, whoever is involved with that should be ashamed of themselves.
Are the Stinkers the Golden Globes to the Razzies Oscars? Yeah, okay. Among the numerous, reportedly 8 drafts of the script written, the controversy and protests of the film was based on a third draft, which was transcribed and placed on the internet by an unknown source. Due to the controversy of the film, Disney was having doubts about releasing the film, at which point Miramax's Harvey Weinstein personally brought the project from Miramax and sent it to Lionsgate, which is why the film is unavailable to stream or buy because the rights reside with him. It was originally scheduled for a November 1998 release date before the controversy. And lastly, in the commentary, apparently after Columbine, the ideal was potentially to cut the movie's office shootout scene. Smith said it wouldn't have been the biggest loss since it's the scene that doesn't have to do with the plot, which I still fucking love that scene. But
That's why I had to come down here this morning, man. That's why I had to miss my cartoons. You call me, you tell me it's important.
We're going home.
Take it, man, and quit leering at me. People are gonna think I just broke up with you.
Two fallen angels have just discovered a loophole that can get them back into heaven.
Outstanding work.
All they have to do is get to Red Bank, New Jersey. There's only one problem.
What are you? What do you want with me?
Stop a couple of angels from entering and thus negating all existence. I hate it when people need it spelled out for them.
Now,
I'm to charge you with a holy crusade.
one person has been chosen to stop them, but she won't have to do it alone.
I'm Jay. This is my head of life mate, Silent Bob.
You gotta be kidding me.
Prophets, in a manner of speaking.
What about sex?
No sex.
Guys, I guess just don't follow the sky, you know? Oh, that sucks.
What are you?
I was the 13th apostle.
You knew Christ.
No. Brother owed me $12. I thought she looked familiar.
Let me guess. The 14th apostle.
Would like 2 tickets to New Jersey, please?
Jersey's sold out, sir. I suggest you not underestimate the staggering drawing power of the Garden State.
They're successful. You, me, all of this ends in a heartbeat. I feel like Han Solo, you're Chewie, and she's Ben Kenobi. Prepare to taste God's wrath.
Anyone who isn't dead or from another plane of existence would do well to cover their ears right about now.
What's he like?
God, it's got a great sense of humor. Take sex, for example.
Sex is a joke in heaven.
The way I understand it, it's mostly a joke down here, too.
Get it?
Bryden, was this your first time watching it?
My first time watching it, but not my first Kevin Smith movie. I think I've seen Clerks. I've seen most of Mallrats like on Netflix, which I think I came in maybe like 20 minutes late to that one, but I've seen most of that movie. Chasing Amy, now this. Clerks 2, Second Mary Make a Porno, Cop Out, Red State, and Tusk. Tusk is the last one, is like the most recent one that I've seen. I have not seen his later films, but yeah.
You haven't seen Yoga Hosers? You're missing out.
Oh, am I?
No,
I'm a bad Canadian for not seeing the new Cronenberg and also for not seeing Yoga Hosers. That's my cross
one
to
of
bear.
those is right. Yeah.
Well, you are a bad Canadian for one of those, but Jesus.
Oh God, yeah. Need an American to make a very, very obvious Canadian movie where it's just like, you know, how they say "a"
And a boot.
That's funny. Yeah.
I
very
will
funny.
say, I went to Sundance the year. One of the few times I went to Sundance, they did have Yoga Hosers there, and Smith provided no press screenings whatsoever, and we're like, no, because of the negative reception that my films have received over the past several years, you have to buy a fucking ticket to see and review my movie, so you have to spend money in order to make money, and then, like...
How did we get...
Just... That's the movie that we are expected to actually invest in.
If you're gonna shit on my movie, you better pay for it first.
Which, grow the fuck up,
How did he get
dude.
less mature as he got
Grow
older?
a fucking spine.
Because, like, Dogma, I mean, not to, like, get into it right away, but, like, you know, the movie, like, opens with, like, the thing where it's, you know, this is, like, not serious, you know, like, you know, what's the line it has about, like, talking about critics? It's, like, you know, it's fiction not meant to be serious. God judges, not film critics. Just kidding, or whatever. And you're like,
No,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Where I was just like, well, flash forward to several years later, and you're more thin-skinned than ever. Like, what the fuck, dude?
He says that, but he usually always says, like, you know, I make them for my fans, which is always the worst thing a director can say, because that just means say, don't try.
Yeah. Oh, it shows. Anyway, I'm stepping over you, Bryden.
Oh, it definitely shows us the past, like, 15 years. But, yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, am I giving my initial thoughts, just to be clear? I just wasn't.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'd never seen this one. And it's something I wanted to see. The only other one that I want to watch of his now is Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Although I'm hesitant now because...
It's a fun time.
Well, the thing is, I feel like that's like those are characters that like go a little of them goes a long way, and like them being so front and center with this movie kind of is a problem with me. I feel like with this movie, I'm like kind of on the fence of it. I think there's like a third of a good movie in here. I think if the whole movie was just about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, I feel like the chemistry that they have, like, is where they're really firing on all cylinders with each other, where it does feel kind of like have like a shared history and everything, where like they're just like the looks that Ben Affleck will give Damon and everything when like Damon's going on these like very sanctimonious rants and everything, just like a bit like is very funny. And like you get like a whole sense of like their relationship. And I feel like there's also, I feel like, character work there and like the way that they come across. Like, I mean, I feel like Affleck's heel turn in the movie where he becomes like just like an unhinged villain. I feel like it's maybe a little abrupt, but I feel like also Affleck's giving like a genuine performance. I mean, where like like the scene with Fiorentino on the train where like he like realizes who he's talking to, and then like the sort of like little flicker of a smile that he tries to suppress is like he's like thinking like, oh, I'm gonna like kill this. Where like it's like genuinely kind of creepy and like and then him like lashing out like because it's like putting these angels on a pedestal and then like but then like allowing the humans to be forgiven and everything, and it's like I don't know, like there is like a sort of sense of like a nugget of an idea of like getting at the hypocrisy and everything. I feel like the rest of the movie kind of doesn't quite do. I mean, like the massacre scene at the business office, I feel like that's kind of like separate from, I mean, they talk about how it's idolatry. I feel like it's kind of separate from like the religion they're actually tackling in the movie. But then like I feel like you've got like all this other stuff where it doesn't really work. I mean, the Jay and Silent Bob stuff, I mean, I feel like just the one joke that they have that like they just like cannot get enough of is like that they want to have sex with Linda Fiorentino and then they will not stop asking even when she tells them to stop, and then she's not interested, and the movie just like can't get enough of it. And like it's like just the movie like where Smith also has like this tendency where like it will be like characters making jokes and then like sort of like his like long pauses where like it will be like leaving almost like he's leaving air for people to like laugh at the jokes and everything, and then like having sort of like the sort of like wink wink like looks that they'll give each other, and it's just like I don't know, I find it like really kind of grating and self-impressed in a way that I don't like. Not to like project all this onto Smith as a personality or whatever, but and I just don't think Smith has like the pacing down to make this movie's like 2 hour plus runtime like really zip by, like, and it's a road movie like in its essence and everything, like but like they're traveling from Philadelphia to New Jersey over the course of a few days, and
it's like
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Fuck, I fucked it up. Sorry, not the same as Philadelphia. Yeah. I think the reason I was confused is because
it's not all taking place on the East Coast.
Well, no, the reason I was confused is because the film I forgot while watching the movie, and then the locations at the end were thanks to New Jersey and Pittsburgh for filming, and I got confused. So that's my mistake. But like I feel like with a road movie, like the thing that like really makes that sort of subgenre hit is like whether it's like the eccentric characters you're meeting along the way, or the sense of place and all the various destinations you stop by. And I feel like every location in this movie is just like so anonymous, where it's just like parking garages and train but also there's not like a really a texture to like the anonymity or sort of like the dead-endedness of it. I mean, I feel like you do get, and that's the thing that I think Smith is good at in his early films, like Clerks, with like the like the shopping, the little mini mart that they're working at, and then the dirt malls that they go visit and mall rats and everything. I feel like he really can be good at that stuff, even though I don't think he's like the most visually expressive filmmaker. I feel like he does like get that, but like I don't know, in this movie, just like it doesn't feel like there's really any kind of. And it's supposed to be like a ticking clock narrative where like they're supposed to be trying to stop this apocalypse, and I feel like there's just like not really any urgency in the movie whatsoever, and it's I don't know, and like it's the thing over like I find like a lot of the jokes in this movie, like it's not funny enough consistently enough, I think, to paper over like some of the other things that I start thinking about, where like I feel like the commentary doesn't entirely feel coherent with like the religious stuff, like, or even like especially well thought out. Like the one joke that kind of stuck out to me was like Chris Rock saying like where he's like the 13th apostle, which is a funny idea, like just the idea that there's like a 13th apostle, but like it's like him like saying, oh well, like our story wasn't told because like they didn't want black people on the Bible, and like it was all white guys. And I'm thinking like, well, I don't think that's entirely accurate that it was like white people in the Bible, because that's like in the Middle East, I think. Like it's like I don't think that's like quite right. Again, I'm maybe reading into the joke, but if the movie were funny, I feel like, or consistently funny, I guess, and it's subjective, of course, I feel like I would be able to like overlook that stuff. But it's just like when the movie is like that long and not especially fleet in its pacing, and the jokes aren't hitting, I kind of just like my mind wanders, and I'm just starting to think of stuff too. And also like the other thing too, like this is my last thing I'll say before I move on, is like also the joke of like or I don't even know if it's a joke because the movie treats it pretty sincerely, but like Salma Hayek like says like, well, it's not like, what you believe in, it's how strongly you believe in it that matters. And I'm thinking like, what does that mean then? Like Scientology, is that like the thing that like is going to be valid and everything? Like it's like I don't know. It's just like that kind of thing where I'm like, I don't buy the things that this movie is saying, and I don't even know if like it's. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a little bit more into it as we go into the discussion, but I don't know. This just I just don't really feel like this movie has anything to say, and it doesn't. And again, if it were funny, I feel like it would work. I would be able to overlook that, but it didn't really work for me enough. But Damon and Affleck, I feel like there's a nugget of a good idea in the movie, and whenever we cut over to them, I feel like that's really funny. And if the whole movie had been about them, it might have been more like tightly focused and had more room to flesh out their conflicts and maybe give them some like credence to some of their ideas, while also like painting them as like sort of some rather unsympathetic characters. I don't know. I'll yield the floor to you now, both. But those are my brief thoughts now.
So you're saying the 10-minute scene with the shit demon isn't necessary?
I will say that is actually kind of interestingly thought out, and it's just sort of like the sense of like adolescent daydreaming about like what's like the grossest monster you can think of, and also just like the practicality of it, where it's like, or not the practicality, like the logic of it, where it's oh well, like when you die, like you evacuate your bowels and everything. And it's like imagining that it's like from all these people who died on crosses, like that is like kind of like a nastily inventive idea that I can imagine like a 13 that in a way that actually is kind of pleasing, where it's like I can imagine a 13-year-old just thinking like so what happens when you die? It's like, oh, there's like something there, and then like just like and then like making a monster out of it just like to like fuck around and everything. That actually did work for me, and the special effects in there do have like a nice sort of like gross tactility to it.
Didn't Conker's Bad Fur Day, which came out like the same year, also have a shit demon in it?
That sounds familiar.
2 years later, and it's the Great Mighty Poo that you have to throw
Mighty
toilet
Poo.
paper into its mouth while it's singing. Fantastic game. Yeah. Charlie, you go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kevin. Okay, so I saw... Yeah, so, like, when I was, like, in high school, I remember I had a friend who was like, you haven't seen any Kevin Smith movies? And he literally lent me his whole library. Like,
hell yeah.
Up until that point. It was, like,
Your
Clerks,
friend was me. Yes.
Clerks, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, this. I remember, like, we'd lend each other movies all the time, and it was, like, a class we dreaded too. It was, like, geometry or something with a terrible teacher, and it would be the only highlight of the day is, like, us exchanging movies, and I remember just... like liking Kevin Smith movies back in the day, but not fully loving them, and like one of those one and done type of things where I was just like, yeah, it was enjoyable. And I hadn't seen this movie since I was 15. I will also just say I was raised by agnostic parents. I am deeply stupid when it comes to any kind of an analysis on faith or spirituality, especially when it comes to Christianity, Catholicism, what have you. So this was never one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies when I was a kid, and I had not rewatched it since, and now I just find this movie so deeply annoying. I just found it very irritating and very abrasive, and I feel like every single scene is the same, in which Kevin Smith is having a conversation with himself, and no matter who comes on top, Kevin Smith wins. Like one of those things. I felt like it's not, again, subject matter that I was never brought up with. I've never been to church a day in my life. So like,
oh, wow.
But it's not to say I don't enjoy films about faith. I mean, fucking First Reformed, I think, is one of the best films of the past decade. I love Last Temptation of Christ. Obviously many different types of films. And also Paul Schrader, who I just mentioned, is involved with both of those movies. Much different filmmaker when it comes to tackling this type of subject material. However...
You're also a big fan of God's Not Dead, too.
I had to watch that. That's something I watched in high school for class. Yeah.
Oh, God. I did see the first one. My friend and I, just were like, want to get fucked up and watch this? And then by the time we were like, oh shit, it's 6 a.m. What happened? Our heads hurt. No, but anyway, yeah, I find this film to be very one note and to be very juvenile. And again, as Bryden brought up, there's a smugness to Kevin Smith that he has revealed himself to be less transparent with over time, and I think even going back and watching all of his films, he's so impressed with his own juvenile sense of humor, and in a way, it just like I was talking with my roommate who was like, as a lapsed Catholic, like back then, like this film really spoke to me, like especially when it came out, and like I thought it was hilarious, it was great, and all this stuff. And I admitted, I was just like, yeah, I just don't have that background, so like I know I'm at a disadvantage here. But watching it as someone who's going in trying to go in with a fair-headed mindset, it was just I felt like every single scene was exactly the same, where Linda Fiorentino encounters someone, and then she's like, who are you? And then they explain who they are, and she's like, but I've been going to church all my life. What do you mean X, Y, and Z? And then they go, well, X, Y, and Z because 1, 2, 3. And then it's just kind of like, all right, we get it. And it's so talky, and it's so impressed with its own theologies on whatever in a way that isn't exactly challenging or even controversial.
No.
I'm not saying there aren't offensive jokes in this thing, but it is very funny to me, and I will say that I have an amount of privilege because I've always had a sense of remove from the subject matter, but this was so controversial back then. There's like nothing really that
mostly
like,
just with the Catholic League.
Yeah.
And like the violence, I guess, but like it ties it up pretty neatly at the end.
Pretty neatly.
Well, although
not violent, really.
Well, I mean,
besides
guess,
like at the end,
I don't know if at the time or whatever, but like, yeah.
It's just yeah. Well, no, go ahead, Brandon.
So the other thing I wanted to, I mean, I completely agree with you. I didn't want to step on your words and everything, but you're right that this movie is like 90% exposition, where it is just like sitting down and like when you add that on top of Kevin Smith just being like resorting to the shot reverse shot like style of filmmaking, where it is just like people sitting down and talk. It's like I was just zoning the fuck out some of the times while writing, even though it's like great actors like reading some of these lines. I'm just like, you're not conveying this information in an interesting way. But please go on. I want to hear what
No. I completely agree with you. And the fact that you brought up a good point that I didn't even think of, it is that it is a road movie and he's not interested in exteriors or anything, which could at least provide some sense of like we are moving forward in terms of like both the hero's journey and in terms of like aesthetic pleasure, in terms of like, you know, just having something different to look at, which is much different than Clerks, where of course Clerks, that makes sense. You're trapped in this dead-end job where it provides a sense of, you know, it just mundane claustrophobia and just sameness, which anyone who's worked a service job can relate to. But here the stakes are so much higher and he wants to be so much more audacious, and the tone is all over the place, where you have an actual body count in a Kevin Smith movie, but Jay and Silent Bob are cracking the same sex joke over and over again. And I agree with you, Bryden. Like, I mean, we've talked about, as Kevin, you and I have talked about, we love Beavis and Butthead on this show, but those are like cartoon characters, and while Jay and Silent Bob are cartoon characters, Beavis and Butthead is always like, they're always the butt of the joke, but there's always a sense, especially because Silent Bob is obviously played by Kevin Smith, that there's meant to be a sense of likability towards them in a way that more so than Beavis and Butthead, where they're just fucking morons. And obviously I'm not saying that they aren't, but especially Silent Bob. Well, maybe the movie isn't saying they're equal because Jay is clearly dumber and hornier than Bob in this one.
But like they're accidentally smart, where like they reveal like during their horniness, like, oh, like we have to go to the hospital or whatever to get this person or whatever.
And I know Kevin Smith is obviously the auteur behind everything here, but it purposely feels like they're dropped into this movie, and it was just like, why are they here?
It's
and
so
Kevin
sweaty.
Smith just like, because I want them to be, you know, that type.
We'll get into it. It's
where,
so flimsy how they get shoehorned into the movie. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, by the time people are fucking dying and there's actual blood and gore going on here, and Jay's just cracking the same joke about how he wants to fuck Linda Fiorentino, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, it's been... How far into this movie are we? Oh God, there's still 20 minutes left. Oh God, like it's just not my thing. Is ultimately the thing where I know I know this movie has its defenders, and it means a lot to certain people, especially those who are, you know, it felt.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I feel like such a jackass because I just
negative Nancy. Shut up. You know, give me 20 minutes.
Okay, fine. It's here. The mic is yours. Just
yeah. Backstory. I remember when Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was coming out in 2001. They showed Clerks on FX. And being 9 years old, I was like, "Oh, that movie looks funny. He has another movie. Okay, I'm gonna record that because it aired at like 11 p.m. and I had to go to bed because I was in like fucking second grade. And I remember watching that and immediately loving it, but also of the kind of thing where I was just probably like, I don't know, 9 years old, and I was like, this is an adult movie. This is what adults think is funny, so I'm gonna laugh at it and I'll be cool.
Quick question: was the FX version censored? Because I know that movie's notorious for having like it almost got the NC-17 language, which is funny.
It was all blanked out.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and then I didn't know until a few times after I watched it that they actually ran Mallrats afterwards, so that's how I first saw that. And so I have been a fan somewhat of him since 2001. It's my love of his early movies have never really faltered besides Chasing Amy, but Mallrats is still a fun enough time. Clerks is still like top 10 for me. I adore that movie more than anything. And Dogma is one that I haven't seen as often because it's just so long, but rewatching it here, before I watched it, I watched some video that was just like, what happened? Because after Clerks 2, it's like anything he did was pretty much indefensible, and it's just like, what the fuck happened, dude? And it was pretty much saying that it's just like Clerks, he had something to say because he was living that life. Mallrats, it's pretty much just a remake of Clerks, but in a mall. Chasing Amy, he probably shouldn't have made a movie about being insecure that his girlfriend had sex with other people besides him, but he had something to say regardless. And Dogma is however old he was at that time because he was a lifelong Catholic. He has like almost 30 years of that knowledge to talk about, so it makes sense. And then by the time it gets to Zack and Miri Make a Porno, it's just like you just want to rip off Judd Apatow because you don't have any more ideas. And then when it gets to Tusk, it's just like you were high on a podcast and you were just like, what if a guy made into a walrus? And then there's just no more personal element. And I think once he pretty much mined all of his personal ideas, that he just pretty much was just making shit to make shit at that point. So I think that's when... Because then in his later movies, it almost feels like somebody's like, well, you have a daughter now. What's that like? And he's like, you're right. I could write about that. I could, Jersey Girl, for example. But yeah, and then going back to watch this, I was just like, this is definitely probably his best movie, technically. Wow. I do love Clerks more, but I do think the screenplay here is like pretty great overall, because of the amount of context and information that is being, it can be exhausting and whatnot, but Alan Rickman in this movie is fucking phenomenal. I think he's just so funny and so annoyed, and he's so great in this movie. So anytime he's on screen, I'm dialed in. Linda Fiorentino exists in this movie. I do agree that Janine Garofalo would have been better, but also she's just kind of the audience surrogate where she's just like, what's going on? What's happening with this?
It's like the least fun role that you could have in a comedy where you have to be like the straight person while everyone is being like, while everyone's sort of like, you're like bouncing off of like other people and everything, or other people are bouncing off of you.
But Janine Garofalo also is so brilliant at delivering comic annoyance, which Linda Fiorentino is constantly
just seems annoyed. Yeah,
she just seems annoyed, but and again, it is that thing where it's like, I mean, Bryden, you brought it up. I don't want to speculate how much of it was like, it's clear that she's just miserable on this set. It's clear that she's just so does not want to be there. And I don't want to get into who did what or who said what, but like when it comes down to it, it just knowing that made me sad this time around, where I'm just like, it looks like someone just being forced to be in a school play. They
said on the commentary, which was recorded at the time, so 23 years ago, that she was upset that like, during filming, Ben Affleck had to leave and go be on something else and then come back. But she was like, why do I have to stay here the entire time? And he was like, you're in every scene. They're not. So,
yeah.
Again, this was 23 years ago. He said that he's sorry about saying all this stuff, but I'm just saying that's what he said at the time.
And for the record, Linda Fiorentino can be a great actress, because Last Seduction, which is a movie I have serious issues with during its last reveal, she's fucking incredible in that movie.
Yeah.
Just
she's good in a comedy-esque and Men in Black. So
Mhm.
it's like she can do that.
It
But
just it's one of those things where it was just like, I don't know what happened on this set, but yeah, but even certain lines. I mean, Bryden, you put this in the chat, and Kevin, you also put this in the chat. When we were obviously off mic, that like you can just imagine certain line deliveries from Janine Garofalo's just deadpan, just Jesus Christ. Like, I mean, I just saw Romy and Michelle again for the first time in several years, and just like that's a character who is so abrasively unpleasant, but it doesn't matter because her selling that just discomfort and this just like, oh fuck me kind of annoyance is so funny.
I mean, even in a movie like The Minus Man, where she is serious in it and still kind of funny, she's really good in it. So this would have been around the time, and I think she would have been perfect for it.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, this is Matt Damon's like first comedic role, and I think he's like very fucking funny in it.
I know like Damon gets like a lot of flack for like stupid shit that he says in public, and has made some bad movies, but man, when he's on fire, he's like just like splendid to watch. And Affleck too. Their chemistry is very fun.
Like one line that made me fucking die this time around. It was just like when Affleck is like, this is coming from the guy who still owes me $10 over which one was going to be the bigger movie, E.T. or Crush Groove, and Damon's like, you know what? Fuck you, man. Time will tell him that.
I have an issue with those jokes though, where they were just like, oh, do you think when Chris Rock drops down and was like, do you think he has a letter attached to him, like in that movie Con Air? Oh, that sucked. And then Salma Hayek has a thing of, I'm responsible for 19 of the top 20 highest grossing movies of all time. Well, which one was the one? Oh, you know that dumb movie where the kid's like, ah! You're like, oh, God had to pull some serious shit to make that one work. And I was just like, Kevin Smith.
And then it cuts to a guy taking a shit after she said shit. Cinema.
But I'm just like, but this is a typical Kevin Smith thing. It's like the thing he does in Clerks 2 where he talks about why Star Wars is better than Lord of the Rings. And I'm just like, dude, shut up.
Well, it's
like, you don't even know how to use a camera. Fuck you.
It's also funny too that like he like has like, because there's a whole scene where Jay and Silent Bob talk about like your I mean, we'll get into this, like how John Hughes, the John Hughes thing factors into it, but like how they,
it's so funny.
How they love John Hughes movies and everything, and it's like they know that like Home Alone was like co-written by John Hughes. It's like, oh, whatever. But yeah.
Well, Salma Hayek says that, not Jay and Silent Bob. If they were around, they would have been like, hey, you don't disrespect Chris Columbus in here.
But it's just such punching down humor without any sense of self-awareness or even like, where it just is just making me be like, dude, you were so lucky to have succeeded for what you did. Like,
and it's subjective.
He never really does that again, because like in Jay and Silent Bob, he's having fun while making fun of other movies, like another Scream movie or stuff
Clerks
like that.
too. He does the whole Lord of the Rings Star Wars thing, and I know that
that's not as bad as being like, oh, fucking Con Air sucks or Home Alone sucks.
Also, like it's subjective, but Con Air is good. Like that's
Con Air is a much better movie than Dogma. I would much rather watch Con Air over Dogma.
Both movies.
I haven't seen Con Air.
Both movies do. Oh, it's fun. Both movies do have like end credits where it's like the people turning to the camera and smiling, which Ebert noted at the time. Like Con Air, it's like very weird that all this horrible stuff happens, and it's like these violent criminals who are like smiling to the camera, and then like Dogma has the end credits,
like Predator.
And then Dogma has the end credits where like it's like the people like cracking up at the end of the movie.
What else I can say? Oh yeah, Chris Rock is also really good in here. He's like almost never a good actor, but I think he's like very funny, and actually during the serious moments, he's like actually pretty good. Not as good as Spiral from the Book of Saw, but you know,
Jesus, I forgot about
but yeah,
that.
I know we all did. But I mean, like Jason Lee is always good. He's good in it. Selma Hayek.
He annoyed me in this. I'm sorry, and it might be the writing and the character, but Jason Lee really rubbed me the wrong way in this movie.
If it was better material, I think I'd like the performance a little bit more. I do think he's putting stuff.
That's the thing with everyone in this movie for me, though. Apart from like, I agree with you, Kevin, that Alan Rickman, I don't like his dialogue in this, but he's selling it the best way he can.
He has great diction. I mean, just the emphasis he puts on like the words where
stop a couple of angels from entering and thus negating all existence.
Clever
lackeys. Spelled out.
Yeah,
he's basically doing the same type of performance he did in Galaxy Quest, though. In Galaxy Quest, he's a better character. Maybe that like same year, by the way, but like that was the thing. Is I just was like, God, I wish I was watching Galaxy Quest right now.
I finished Dogma, and I was just like, I wish I was rewatching Dogma right now. But yeah, love this movie. I can't defend Smith for the past like 15 years, but I'm always just like, ah, buddy, maybe next time, even though you know it's not going to be next time. But yeah, like very, very, very formative those first 5 movies, and Clerks still.
Yeah, I'll go to the
favorites.
map for that one. I like a few of those. I still like a few of those older ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, I was like cutting in too with like your initial thoughts. I wasn't trying to. Sorry if I was talking.
I also cut in, Bryden. We have been both very mean to
You
Kevin in his
assholes.
childhood.
Yeah. No. But yeah, Bud Cort showing up. That's fun.
I did not remember that at all.
Yeah. Trying to.
What do you think of the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was trying to think what we.
What do you think of the Alanis Morissette song at the end?
Sure.
It's. I was thinking, oh, this might be okay, and I'm like, this is a long song. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah. It was definitely just like, so we need a movie for the song for the credits. She was like, okay, what do you want? He was like, how about? She was like, I guess.
Yeah,
sure.
and talk about how God still loves you. That's the chorus.
I love it, warts and all. He's not a good director, but the dialogue and it still makes me laugh a lot.
It is funny who shot this movie. It's Robert Yeoman, who shot a lot of like the Wes Anderson movies, and it's just funny.
It's insane.
It's funny to think about some of the DPs that he's worked with over the years. Like isn't it like Laszlo Kovacs who shot like Jersey Girl or something? And then like
yes,
yeah,
yes,
what?
And then
what?
And then Tusk and Yoga Hostess are both shot by James Laxton, who shoot Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk, which are gorgeous looking movies.
Quick correction: the cinematographer for Jersey Girl is actually Vilmos Zsigmond, different Hungarian cinematographer.
God.
So wild. Anyways, I just found that funny. And Howard Shore did the score for this too, Canadian.
Yep.
So
that was the other thing that blew my mind is I had no idea Howard Shore did the score for this fucking thing until after I was done watching it.
So that's what's kind of notable about this movie is like it is like I don't know. Again, I don't agree with you, Kevin. That this is like his best movie technically and everything, but it is definitely one of his most ambitious movies.
I meant like technically. I was gonna say like it's his best movie, but my favorite is still Clerks.
Sure.
Like I think this is peak-ish because Jay and Silent Bob is just like a wacky Scooby-Doo in credits to his whole View Askew universe. But I was like, this is the best that he could do, and also he was writing the script for like 10 fucking years. So
sure, it's interesting just in the context of his career and like him like trying to like cash all his chips in on this like very ambitious project and like you said, deeply personal. I mean, this is like I don't remember the interview super well, but like it's like there's a book I have of like 1,000 movies that, or like not 1,000, but like movies that mean the most to me. And it's like filmmakers talking about movies that mean the most to them. And the movie that Kevin Smith is interviewed about is A Man for All Seasons, the Fred Zinnemann movie, which is like it's like, oh, that's very unexpected for Kevin Smith. But anyways, yeah, it is interesting when you frame it like that. But I guess it's more like me thinking about like talking about it rather than actually watching it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are bits in it I still like. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I just unlocked my younger brain, but after it was over, I was like, fuck, I want to rewatch it, man. Like to the point where like when I was younger, I watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back so much that like it was 15 years where I was like, I never want to see a fucking frame of that movie ever again. But then I rewatched it like a year or two ago, and I was like, you know what, it's still fun. I always think about Jay busting into the window and seeing James Van Der Beek and saying, holy shit, it's the Dawson. And then Jason Biggs is there. He goes, hey, aren't you the guy that fucked the pie? Yeah, it's good stuff. Let's get into the plot. There's a lot of plot. Yay.
Yeah.
Bartleby and Loki are fallen angels, eternally banished from heaven to Wisconsin for insubordination after inebriated Loki resigned as the Angel of Death at Bartleby's suggestion. That's funny. Yeah, they said in the commentary that there was just like, oh, we were thinking about whenever Alan Rickman is talking to Linda Ferrantino about like how they got banished and whatnot. He was like, we were gonna have like funny like cutaways to them doing all of this, and we were like, oh, we decided against that. I was like, good. There's no way that would have looked good. That would have looked like the fucking hell scenes in Spawn, probably.
Yeah.
In a newspaper article that arrives anonymously, the angels discover a way home. Cardinal Glick is redecorating his church in Red Bank, New Jersey, in the image of the Buddy Christ, which rules. Anyone who enters the church during the redecoration festivals will receive a plenary indulgence, remitting all sins. Were the banished angels to undergo this rite and then die after transmuting into human form, God would have no choice but to allow them back into heaven. They are encouraged by the demon Azrael and the triplets demons, the 3 teenage hoodlums who serve Azrael in hell.
Yes, and the Cardinal, worth mentioning that he's played by George Carlin, the famous stand-up comedian, and also that one of the hockey jersey-wearing demons is played by a young man named Katao Sakurai, who grew up to direct the Eric Andre Lil O'Howery vehicle Bad Trip, which is pretty funny. Yeah,
very funny.
I don't know. I mean, like I like this opening scene with Damon and Affleck where they're just like fucking with people and like just like having a good time. You know, Damon is like convincing a nun to like leave the faith with like charity money, and Affleck is like people watching, and they're like, and I think they're back and forth on like the when they're like reading the newspaper article, and like and Affleck says like gives him the article, and Damon starts reading it, and then like he like just sort of trails off, and he's just like, well then what? And then like Affleck's just like, you have to keep reading it. Like like the pissiness that Affleck brings to it like does feel like you like do immediately get like a sense of history between them. And I think it's because like, you know, Damon and Affleck are very good friends. Like that's like a known thing, and like they've acted and worked together before. But like I think their chemistry is like very fun and makes a lot of the dialogue have like a good zing that it might not have otherwise if it was other actors. But
they're two of the best parts of the movie by far.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
But you do also have like stuff that I don't know. I guess it's maybe Kevin Smith trying to like do like background gags and everything. But like when they're just like walking past like the movie fast food merch and everything, that's like they decide to go on a killing spree and everything, like targeting fast food and everything, and just like the camera sort of like lingers in the background of like two guys like wearing the cheesehead outfits and everything in the background and doing like devil horns, and it's just kind of like, okay, it's not really much of a joke that like has a punch and everything. It's like, I mean, it's him like trying to do something a little more inventive, but it just like it doesn't really work. And I mean, timing is everything with comedy and everything, but like some of the scenes in this like just like they either like pause a little too long before cutting to the new one, or like they cut like look as soon as like the words are out of a person's mouth, like they're saying like, and I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to like be.
No, but it's all about editing too. I mean, he should have like cut down.
Yeah.
In terms of like, yeah.
Bethany Sloan, a despondent abortion clinic counselor, attends a service at her church in Illinois. Donations are solicited for a campaign to stop a New Jersey hospital from disconnecting life support on John Doe, Jersey, a homeless man who was beaten into a coma by the triplets. Metatron, a seraph and the voice of God, appears in Bethany in a pillar of fire and explains that if Bartleby and Loki succeed in re-entering heaven, they will overrule the word of God, disprove functional concept of God's omnipresence, and nullify all of existence. Bethany, aided by 2 prophets, Jay and Silent Bob, must stop the angels and save the universe.
Now, how did Jay and Silent Bob make their way into this movie? Is like, why are they there? That's worth getting into. I think is it, my.
The triplets are gonna rob her or whatever after she leaves work, and they come out and save her, and then they're talking about, oh, we should just stay in New Jersey. We'd make a profit, and they're talking about making an actual profit, and Metatron says that she will see 2 profits, and it's kind of cute.
Well, I was also thinking, like, isn't it like they're in Wisconsin because like they were going? Is it? I can't remember if this is exactly how.
I don't remember.
But like, isn't it that they said they watched all these John Hughes movies and they thought that the town that they're set in existed, so they traveled all the way there to get there, found out the town wasn't real, and now they're going back to New Jersey. And it's like it's. I'm just like, that's like the. I'm like, you couldn't have like thought somebody less sweaty to like bring them together and everything.
Well,
like,
I mean, the whole thing is that Jay and Silent Bob are from a completely different universe and a completely different movie. Them being in Clerks is one thing. Them being in this movie, it's. I mean, even them being in like Mallrats too.
Sure,
like, it's just.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's an example of Kevin Smith liked these characters too much, and he just wanted them to be in the movie, and they were like, "How can we connect the dots?" And they're there.
Yeah,
I do remember in the commentary, Ben Affleck very funnily says he was just like, I've worked with directors that like to do coverage and whatnot, but I guess they're just all hacks compared to you. I guess is that what's going on? It's pretty funny. Now at Target, Bethany is attacked by the triplets, who are driven off by the 2 four-tone prophets, drug-dealing stoners, Jay and Silent Bob. Please applause. Bethany and the prophets are joined by Rufus, the 13th apostle, played by Chris Rock, and Serendipity, the muse of creative inspiration, now working in a strip club in search of inspiration of her own.
Oh yeah, that the Salma Hayek strip club introduction, it's like so. I mean, it's like a thing of like I struggled to like to understand the geography of that club and everything. Like I don't think the scene gets a very clear idea of like because it's like she's dancing for like two competing groups of audiences, like Jay and Silent Bob, and then like a group of young black men, including one of the actors. I can't remember his name, but I think he's like one of the artists who's in Chasing Amy. He like, but like the movie like is like cutting between. She's like tilting her head, and then like there'll be like sort of like a bell ding sound effect on the soundtrack or whatever, and then like it will cut to like the reaction shots of the patrons and everything, and it's like I guess they're in like a bidding war for her attention, but like
They are,
but their eye
and
line
it goes on forever.
It goes on forever, but also their eye lines. I'm like thinking, where are they in relation to each other in like watching the stage and in the club? Like it's just like it doesn't make sense.
They said in the commentary it's just like through editing they made that scene make sense.
Yeah,
but they said
explains a lot
because it was supposed to be like they're competing, and then the gang was supposed to like get violent with them, and then they were just like, this doesn't really work. Yeah. But it is very funny afterwards when Serendipity and Bethany and all of them are talking, and then Jay and Silent Bob come by and goes, hey, they made us members of their gang.
But like this is like the fact that they're like in a gang and like they all have guns. It's just like,
well,
dude,
yes,
like
no, that's not.
It's a pretty rotten stereotype. Like,
well, that's the thing about this whole movie that I have a problem with is like it's trying to be politically incorrect and correct at the same time, which like again, not to be like I'm the like it's the same thing with like
folks. The PC police has shown up. Mr. Nash is here.
Jesus, God damn it! It's just like the whole like Ben Affleck will be like you disowned your son because he was gay, but then like half of the jokes are homophobic, and I'm just kind of like, all right, like what? And I'm not offended by them. I just find them lazy. Or, like Chris Rock will be like, you beat off more than any other person in the world. And
all right,
like,
but tell me something I don't know.
Don't know. Half the time you're thinking about guys, and then Bob will be like, huh?
Oh.
And I'll be like, not all the time. And I'm just like, I'm not offended by that, but like, you're doing this whole holier than thou speech from Affleck, and then in another scene you're making that the joke. It's like, so you believe it, and I can understand the argument being like, well, it's him calling out his own discomfort with his own hypocrisies, but that's not what the movie's doing.
Well,
it really isn't doing that. It's ultimately on the side of like, this is what is considered typical comedy in the 90s, right? And it's just not funny.
I would say
I'm not saying homophobic jokes can't be funny either. I just don't care if but they're fucking lazy. Is ultimately
right,
the thing that I have
I mean, not to defend homophobia.
That's a great way to start
I need to go.
Yeah, let me cut that out.
Goodbye.
No. Yeah. Just cut that out. Put it on the internet. I'm done. No, but like it's the thing, like you were saying with Beavis and Butthead, it's just like it's coming from the stupid characters in the movie.
But you're also supposed to like them at the end, and like occasionally like pearls of wisdom.
Beavis and Butthead are outrageously sexist, but I also do like them at the same time because they're dumb.
Oh, but
and
the whole thing is the whole
dumb.
world but the whole world is against them, and then they're always the butt of the joke. They don't become integral to saving the planet at the end of the movie. And if they do, it's all because everyone's too stupid to realize that they are just like morons. Whereas Jay and Silent Bob, it is that type of thing where even Matt Damon's like, these guys, they're not bad. Like, what about those guys? We met them on the train. They're pretty decent guys. And it's just like, what makes you think that, like, where Beavis and Butthead, it's like, yeah, it again, like, I'm not saying those types of jokes can't be funny. It's all about the context for this, and the context is that for me, like, it's too full of its own bullshit. Is ultimately where I come down on it.
Okay, but the funny scene where they're saying, "What are you guys doing? Oh, we're about to smoke a bowl with these guys. This is Larry and Barry," and the only time that the joke where they're intimate that they're gonna sleep with Bethany, and he goes, "Oh, hi," and Jay says you're gonna sleep with him. That's the only time it's funny. The rest of it is just like beating the exact same joke over and over. But
it's but that's ultimately the other thing, is that like even Beavis and Butthead, even if it's the same joke, there's like different variations on that joke, and I feel like this is just the same gag over and over again. Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like the movie, like, sort of the plot kicks back in when they're on, the strip club. Although, when does I gotta check my notes with the boardroom scene, because like that scene is kind of pivotal, like in terms of like Loki and Bartleby's like massacres. They want to like target like consumerism.
It's like the halfway point, right?
Yeah, it's actually not in this rundown, but it's right after the scene where
it's
where
right
as-
before.
It's after they meet Salma Hayek in the strip club. After they meet
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's before they meet up on the train because they get held up because of Matt Damon's killing spree.
Yes, like he shoots someone on the bus because it's a guy cheating on his wife or whatever. And
that scene is so fucking.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's fine. Although there is like a weird kind of like bent to like some of like the where just like them like often targeting women and everything. Like I mean, even when like at the start of the movie before they start killing people, it's like Ben Affleck talking about like, oh look at all these people in the airport. You know they're hugging each other, but this guy doesn't know that his girlfriend cheated on him twice. I'm like, really? Like you're making it like the like the woman who's like the cheater, like it's like and like killing them. I don't know, but it's that. I mean, that's not there.
But then in the movie shootout, they kill everybody besides her, and they go, "You lead a distant life. Good for you." But you didn't say "God bless you" when I sneezed.
That is very funny, and I would say I would like more jokes like that, especially because I feel like there's opportunities for them where like it's Alan Rickman often taking Dolores' name in vain when he like pops into a scene or is angry. It's like I think like I feel like that's a missed opportunity where I'm like, why was it would be funny if like God was saying like, hey now, what were you like? What was this that you were saying back? I would have liked those jokes and everything, but just sort of like the nitpicky stuff where it's like that's the thing that you're harping on. But in terms of like religious rules, but the boardroom scene. I feel like that is the movie's attempt at like really trying to go for dark humor, and I feel like for the most part, whiffing it. Where it's just like they're just talking about.
I do think Affleck is dialed in that scene.
I think
he's so good in it.
The performances are dialed in. It's just it's Kevin Smith being in love with his own dialogue that really gets to me.
It's also like it's like dark comedy. It's like his idea of dark comedy is just describing the most horrifying things and everything. Where it is like rape and child molestation and all these other things, and I'm like, so is it like I don't see where the humor is in like the way you're just naming this off. I mean, I guess he's doing it jauntily and everything, but I'm thinking like I don't see what the joke is with like a lot of the things that like you're like I like it just like it kind of loses the tone. I feel like in terms of like trying to make it. I mean, you can have these characters of course be horrible, like the boardroom members that they're gonna kill and everything, but like it's just like I don't want to like be like. I hope I'm making this come across okay and anything because like of course, but like it's.
There's a difference. Can I jump in? Like,
Please,
I think Happiness is. I mean, I love the movie Happiness, which some people fucking despise. Where that is some of the most explicitly.
But Happiness is committed.
But Happiness is committed and nuanced and making you stick with the characters and their behavior and making them stick with like, hey, this person's a fucking pedophile. They know that they're mentally ill, but. You're gonna stick with this person, and the movie and the character knows that it's fucked up. This person, there's like, and Todd Solondz and Kevin Smith were both making movies at the same time, but there were two completely different types of filmmakers.
Maybe this is a tangent. I wonder what they talk about if they met.
But like, I guess what I'm saying is like, if you want to bring up sensitive subject matter like that, I'm not saying that like that's off bounds in terms of comedy. It's just, it feels like an easy way out of like a way to like, well.
The joke for him is just bringing it up.
Exactly.
To be dark.
It's not actually dealing with it.
Yeah. And I don't really, and it's like I don't feel like there's really anything dangerous to it, especially like this movie, like in terms
it's
of
not
like
dangerous at all.
Especially because this movie, like you're talking about, like how it's so controversial with like in terms of religion. It's like and like the flimsiest connection here is like it's like they're calling like I mean I guess that there is like maybe a nugget of idea of, like in terms of like people who like commit like mass shootings, like they're saying like they're doing it for a reason. It's like the reason is like not really irrelevant there. It's like they mostly just want to. I mean, there's a line that Matt Damon has that's like, wow, he's just like blowing off eons of repression right now and everything. And that's like what they're doing, and just like giving like very vague tangential motivations here, and like that's an idea, but it's like I don't feel like it's really saying anything particularly lacerating about religion and or like religious hypocrisy in that particular scene. I feel like it's just kind of separate from the rest of the movie. I feel like in terms of
acknowledging this difficult subject matter is not the same as engaging with difficult subject matter, which is what I feel like is this movie's detriment in general. And I'm not saying it's not trying to engage with it on factual stuff in regards to Kevin Smith's upbringing and Catholicism and stuff like that. But when it comes to like, that boardroom scene, like it's obvious. It's just kind of like, okay, he named two people with certain things that are horrible. What are the other 4 or 5 other people gonna be? And then, oh, you're a decent person. And then, yeah, like
It's also
anyway.
It's also interesting that he's talking about like these horrible sex crimes in relation to this corporation. And I guess it's interesting to like think about like how relevant this was. But like when you're making a movie about the Catholic Church. And that's one of the things that you don't mention in the movie as like one of their things. They mention like
I was kind of shocked by that too.
Yeah, they mentioned when they go to George Carlin, they talk about the worst things that the church did, or like 2 of the bad things they did was like slavery, which of course very bad, and then like the Holocaust, like not taking any action during the Holocaust or whatever. And it's like
I remember being shocked by that too, Bryden. And I know it was 1999, and I was like 8 when this movie came out, but I was shocked that I was just like, people were talking about that back then.
Yeah, it feels like a weird of course mention those things. Like I think there's merit in bringing up those things the church was involved in, but it's like it does. And again, it's like hindsight 2020, or like in terms of like how much this is talked about with like the Boston Globe reporting on that stuff with like what was made chronicled in the movie Spotlight and whatever. But it's like it does like feel like a weird omission when you're talking about it. It's like when you talk about like bad things that the Catholic Church has done. It's like that is like a thing that is talked about. Sorry if that was like snickering. I'm not. It's not. It's obviously the part of the money.
Well, South Park. South Park dealt with stuff like this in a much more, even in 30 minutes, like South Park engaged with more controversial subject material in a way that is similarly, and I like much earlier episodes of South Park. I think South Park is an equally smug show that is very, very funny in its early episodes that at least engaged with this on certain, like, trying to make things even playing fields. And I don't remember if there was an episode. I know they've tackled, obviously, this subject matter in later episodes. I don't know if it was before 1999, but
right. Yeah. And I don't know whenever the Spotlight thing. I think that was early 2000s, right?
Yeah, because this is my stupid brain associated with the movie and everything. But like, there's like a key point in the movie where like they're reporting on the case, and then they have to take a break because 9/11 happens, and they have to cover that story.
Right. Because 99. This is supposed to come out in 98, so this is probably 3-4 years after the Sinead O'Connor SNL thing, where people were just like, what are you talking about? Things in the Catholic Church? That doesn't exist.
And Joe Pesci said, I would have slapped her if I was there.
Yeah,
like,
the next week. Yeah. So I feel like it hadn't broken just yet, but I'm sure they were, it wasn't just like a bomb that went off. It's just like, obviously Sinead O'Connor knew about it, then anyways, back to the plot. On a train to New Jersey, a drunken Bethany reveals her mission to Bartleby, who tries to kill her. Bob throws the angels off the train. This action scene is fucking terrible. I will not defend that.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, the way that like Affleck is thrown off, it doesn't even look like real. The way it looks like there's no weight to him at all. But I do love Damon's line where it's like, I could just get off at the next stop when he's like thrown at the train. Like Damon, like it's his character's kind of weird where he is like the one instigating most of the violence, but is also like weirdly affable and everything. Like when Azrael shows up like to tell them there's a death warrant, he's like, hey, nice to see you, and everything. Like he's very like jovial.
It's like they're looking for you, and he's like, really?
Yeah.
Also, I know that Linda Fiorentino's character is drunk, but like she's been warned by Rickman about this like at the beginning, and then she meets 2 very drunk people on the train, and it's kind of like after Alan Rickman and Chris Rock and Selma Hayek, and it's like, wouldn't you expect, like, I'm not saying don't get drunk, I'd be fucking plastered by this point, but like, but at the same time, it's like her character just kind of changes depending on whatever turn the story needs to take, without any sense of like, I don't know. And I know it's not a realistic movie, but like, if you're gonna have a cipher, you might as well have someone that's like got some semblance of, I don't know,
right.
Affleck's really good in this scene. I'd say he's a pretty good scene partner with Fiorentino.
Where he's just like, what am I supposed to do? Kill a bunch of angels? He's like, maybe you should kill them. She's like, oh yeah. And then like, yeah, his chilling word delivery and that is really good.
The way he seems kind of happy about like the mask like sort of lifting. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's really effectively played. Yeah.
Well, Affleck playing a scumbag is also like, is that often when he's his best? I would argue.
Is true. I mean, yeah, like Last Duel, Gone Girl,
Gone Girl, yeah.
Mallrats. The scummiest guy in Mallrats. Bartleby and Loki now realize the consequences of their scheme. Loki wants to impart destroying all existence, but Bartleby remains angry at God for his expulsion and for granting free will to humans while demanding servitude from angels, and resolves to proceed. This is the scene in the parking garage. I think Affleck in particular is just giving it. It's just so good. In New Jersey, and we know it's New Jersey because they walk by a sign that says "Welcome to New Jersey."
Welcome to New Jersey.
Bethany asks why she has been called upon to save the universe. Why can't God simply do it himself? Metatron admits that God's whereabouts are unknown. He disappeared while visiting New Jersey in human form to play skee-ball. The task falls to Bethany because she now learns she is the last scion, a distant but direct blood relative of Jesus. The group cannot persuade Glick to cancel the celebration. Jay steals one of Glick's golf clubs. Their remaining option is to keep the angels out of the church, but Azrael and the triplets trap them in a bar to prevent them from doing so. Azrael reveals that he sent the news clipping to the angels. He would rather end all existence than spend eternity in hell. Bob kills Azrael with the golf club, which Glick blessed to improve his game. Which I do love that, though. They were just like, yeah, he's such an asshole, and he'd be the type to bless his own golf clubs to get a better game.
That is one thing I will say that is, like, not obvious, is that they are just like, why would you steal his golf club? And then that whole buildup of like, oh, come on, hit me. You can't, like, it's a fucking golf club. Like I'm not going to say I didn't not expect
what were you going to say? Hit me with the golf club? Please, I'm a fucking demon. You want me to assault me with a putter? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Like, it's one thing that does expect you to put the pieces together in that moment and be like, which I feel like is the one time Kevin Smith does this throughout this movie that isn't like a total like giveaway. Or a character explaining it to you before it happens, which...
But like, that scene also, like, where, like, you know, he's before Azrael is attacked and everything, there's like where he's like, because Azrael, he says, like, he was, like, a former muse of God and everything, and, like, he was cast out when, like, he got too big for his own britches and everything, and then, like, somehow Hayek Serendipity says, like, you know, Elvis was an artist, you know, but that didn't stop him from fighting in the time of war, you know, like, because Jason Lee says, like, he doesn't want to, like,
that's why he's the
fight.
king, and you're a
and I'm like,
schmuck.
and I'm, like, watching it, I'm, like, listening to it, I'm thinking, like, wait, is this really, like, pro-war? Like, I'm just like, it's like, I was, like, thinking, like, the ideology of this movie, I'm, like, it's, like, little things, like, throwaway lines of the I'm, like, wait, what are you trying to say with this movie? I don't know. It's weird, but like
it's that Kevin Smith is clever and he wants you to be admiring his own cleverness is ultimately what this movie's trying to say.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He's pretty funny.
But and then Jason Lee, I'd say, it does get the line up. But I'm a fucking demon. As he like falls over is pretty good. Like
it's pretty good. Bethany blesses the bar sink's contents, and the others drown the triplets in the holy water. They race to the church where Bartleby has killed Glick, his parishioners, and assorted bystanders.
Pretty good gore effects, I would say, in this scene with like the head exploding when they drop.
That's
pretty good. I would say nice chunky viscera.
Nice chunky viscera.
Bride of Doyle, 2.5 stars.
Yeah, that's my favorite metal band. Yeah,
that's our first T-shirt, everybody.
When Loki, who is now wingless and therefore immortal with a conscience, attempts to stop him, Bartleby kills him as well. Damon doing lots of good drunk acting here because now he's mortal, so now he can drink. All appears lost. Jay attempts to seduce Bethany before all existence ends. I don't know about seduce, but when he mentions the John Doe jersey, Bethany finally puts all the clues together. She and Bob race across the street to the hospital as the others try to keep Bartleby from entering the church, but in doing so, Jay destroys his wings with automatic gunfire, making him mortal as well. Bethany disconnects John's life support, liberating God, but killing herself. Bartleby reaches the church entrance where he confronts God, manifested in female form, who annihilates him with her voice. Bob arrives with Bethany's lifeless body. God resurrects her and conceives a child, the new last scion, within her womb. God, Metatron, Rufus, and Serendipity return to heaven, leaving Bethany and Jay and Silent Bob to reflect on the past and the future. The end.
So, does she resurrect those people, or does she just kind of, like, wipe them off as if, like, a character with a mop does?
Like, what if they're buried under the flowers that they're now like blossoming outside the church?
Yeah, because because I would assume if she could just snap her fingers, then Bethany would just be fine, and like, you know, Linda Fiorentino would be like, "Hey, it's me, Linda Fiorentino. I'm okay." Instead, it's like one of those things where it's like, no one has to expose their eyeballs to this grisly scene anymore. Like,
yeah. The other thing too is, I feel like it's kind of wild that, like, the movie, it's like Fiorentino works at, like, an abortion clinic, and then, without really being consulted about it beforehand, is asked to carry the next Scion.
Yeah.
And they don't even. Yeah.
The movie ends like with like this uplifting like crane shot above like the church and everything. As like she's like saying, "You boys, you can't talk like that so vulgarly. I'm gonna be a mother and everything." I'm thinking like, I feel like there's like a much more like fucked up conflict that like you're not acknowledging in this movie. Again, this is like where the movie like is like standing off a lot of the rough edges where like with like this religious commentary, but like all these threads that are presented as kind of like neutral or even positive and everything. It's like I feel like there's like something kind of dark in that implication there.
Well, yeah, the darkness is it expects you to put the lines between. It expects you to connect the dots in that because she can no longer bear children, she therefore works at an abortion clinic because it somehow gives her some catharsis to like eliminate children.
I forgot about the infertility. Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, yeah, she's in, yeah, because she has that whole scene with Alan Rickman where she's like, "Where was God when I could no longer bear children?" And then my husband left me because I can no longer bear his children. Right. Like, there's no internal conflict there, not even a beat or a line.
There does need to be a line that's saying like, "I couldn't bear children and it made me pissed off at God."
Yeah, like that could be.
So at the end where that happens, you know, it's referencing like Mary who's pregnant without having sex, blah blah blah. But
that could honestly be really darkly funny too if she was just this horrible person who just was like, well, since I can't bear kids, fuck them. Like there's something that is like potentially offensive but very funny about like why she's motivated to be to work in an abortion clinic. Instead, it's trying to play it both sides in a way that is ultimately like shrug, that's not interesting, and but the movie's not interested in it, which then makes me all the more kind of annoyed. That's a good point, Bryden. And again, like, oh, I can bear children? Problem solved. Like, you know, like, it just, there's nothing, you know, Smith isn't interested in that character or that interior conflict. He's more interested in getting from set piece to set piece to set piece, from dialogue in his head with himself to dialogue in his head with another version of himself, or an adult figure like surrogate as to what he's been taught and giving them the finger. And don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of discussions with myself about certain things that I was told not to do as a kid that I've learned is totally fine to do as an adult, even like lacking spiritual stuff, where I'm just like, okay, but like I don't like. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just going in circles at this point and feeling like a jackass, so I'll shut up. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have much to say. I mean, did you? I mean, I took screenshots because I thought I'd maybe read them later, but there was like the all the thanks credits, which seem to have sort of like Kevin Smith's like on like imprint on them. Like at one point, he talks about, he thanks his wife and he says, oh gosh, what does he say? He calls.
It can't be as bad as that tweet, can it?
Oh, it's like, but it's like foreshadowing of what's gonna come or whatever. Like later on, where he says, "Jenny, who gives me strength, love, and major booty," and it's like that is like, yeah, it's like that awful tweet that he gave later on, where it's like we feel like we're cheating on each other or something like that, where it's like just like the worst thing ever, and it's, but yeah, and then like he has like, and also it's funny that he seems to be like dating in the movie like the corporation of like Movie, the fictional restaurant chain that exists also in Clerks too, but then it has like plugs for all the View Askew merch that he's doing at the time, including the comics, and it also seems to be he seems to be just coasting on with like his subsequent films, but yeah, or like his most recent.
The difference is the company is making the movie they call out to be a Jesus figure, which I don't think Kevin Smith is trying to make Jay and Silent Bob like religious figures, but yes, it's borderline hypocritical.
Yeah,
but and that is like, you couldn't even have like a minute or two of like what movie is like hypocritical about. Like, we only knew him as an icon, but like even if it was a bad joke, just like something as like a bad Mickey Mouse like Christ-like figure, like we don't even fully understand what this. We're told again. I feel like this is getting down to a lot of problems I have with this movie and Kevin Smith, is he tells and doesn't show in any way. Right. And that goes in terms of his writing and his direction combined, is he consistently tells you what is right and what is wrong and what is good to feel and what not to feel. And he doesn't know how to visually do that in any way because he's just lacking in that department. I don't know.
Also, it was like the other thing that crossed my mind is when they're talking about movie and they keep saying the name over and over again. I couldn't help but think of like the art house streaming service that we have now.
Oh, of course,
Which is very funny to think about Movie World being like a theme park just based on international cinema.
How dare you release a Peach-a-Pong where a Sekathun films to the public? He is a sin.
You're responsible for raising an app that draws worship from the Lord. And you can also get 30 days free if you put in the promo code. Yeah. When are we going to get a movie sponsorship? I feel like everybody has one. Why not us? If you go to movie.com and use the promo code Soul Survivors, you'll get 10%. No.
I just feel like a crotchety old dad talking about this movie, and that brings me no pleasure to talk about this movie in such negative light.
You expect me to laugh when they talk about poop? You think that's funny?
I just feel like old man yells at cloud with this movie because I know it has its fans, including you, Kevin, and it just doesn't... Like, I know Kevin Smith has a following, and I know that this movie and a lot of his movies mean a lot to people, and it just brings me no pleasure to be like...
You were like my high school principal who, when he heard bad language at sports games, he wanted to say, just get a life.
Just get out of here.
Drop and give me 20, Doyle.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at KevBonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at JDoyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CTNash91. Once again, thank you for listening.